Now this is pod racing. Hey guys, I have decided to review all the Star Wars movies. I grew up with Star Wars and it will always hold a special place in my heart. I'm going chronologically, so to kick things off, we have Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, directed by George Lucas, released in 1999. Well, guys, I have a very controversial opinion of this movie, and that's that I actually like it. I think one of the main reasons that people have a problem with this movie is that their expectations were a bit off from the original trilogy. George set out to make a much different version of Star Wars with the prequel trilogy. It still fit in with the original trilogy. The vision was just a very different story. I, for one, though, grew up with these movies, and it just always felt like Star Wars to me. I never really had a problem accepting them as Star Wars movies. That's not to say, though, that I don't think there are any cons with it. For one, there is the atrocity that is Jar Jar. He is so annoying. I'm not sure what else can be said about him. You know, every scene he's in is stupid. He's just comic relief. It's just a joke. I don't know why he was brought to Tatooine with Qui-Gon. Like, Qui-Gon didn't even want the Queen's handmaiden coming with him, so I don't know why he randomly brought Jar Jar there. He said that, you know, the city's very dangerous. Maybe he wanted Jar Jar to get killed, which would make sense. So, guys, the acting in this movie, you know, it's very wooden. I actually don't blame the actors, though, because George Lucas was kind of notorious for not really giving the actors much direction in this movie. Jake Lloyd, it's terrible. Like, he's cringy in this movie, but I don't blame the kid. Like, I feel bad for him. He's got a lot of hate from these movies, and he did his best. Like, it's George's fault for not directing these actors the way that they should have been directed. And guys, the dialogue in this movie is very, very, very wooden. It's very boring, a lot of points, but the actors did the best they could with it. That's enough of the cons, though. Enough has been said about this movie in a negative way. I see this movie has a lot of pros, actually. For one, we get to see the Jedi Order and the Republic that was kind of teased in the original trilogy. There's a lot of world building in the prequel trilogy. You know, we get to see how the Jedi Order operates. We get to see various worlds and how the Senate operates within the Republic. We see Tatooine is ruled by the Hutts, for instance, because the Republic just doesn't operate out there. So it's cool how they were able to set up these worlds just through the dialogue there. I like also that George takes us back to Tatooine in this movie, but it's a different area of Tatooine. We don't go back to Mos Eisley. We go to Mos Espa. It's the same planet. It's just different cities and such. So it's cool to get to see a different region of Tatooine. And we still get to see Jabba, you know, a familiar face in there, so that's pretty cool. So guys, the CGI in this movie holds up pretty well. There are a few scenes where it's kind of bad. It's a little cheesy. But, I mean, for being made in 1999, that was crazy good CGI. Like, dang. For instance, the pod racing scene, like that's incredible CGI. Like, today, watching that, it's thrilling to me still. I mean, I loved that as a kid, but, like, even today, watching it, it's great. Guys, another thing I think is really cool about this movie is that we get to see two Jedi just kind of, like, going off on their own adventures. We don't get to see that as much in the original trilogy because they're just being hunted. They're freely able to roam around in this world. Guys, the coolest characters in this movie, I think, are Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn. We don't even get to see a lot of Darth Maul, like, what he says or anything. It's just him fighting, and he's pretty awesome with a lightsaber, especially a dual one. But Qui-Gon is, you know, his dialogue again is pretty wooden, but I still think he's a cool character. He's a very, like, stern Jedi Knight. It's cool the way he teaches Obi-Wan and Anakin throughout the movie. He kind of goes against the Jedi Council a lot, and I'll get more into that in a bit. This also includes my second favorite lightsaber duel of the entire Star Wars franchise with, you know, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon versus Darth Maul at the end. Some great action sequences. We really get to see the full power of the Sith and the Jedi. And then we get the emotional impact at the end with Qui-Gon dying and Obi-Wan rushing to his side. Guys, a lot of people complain about this movie having to do too much to deal with trade disputes and whatever. But it never really bothered me. I actually think it's kind of cool how this is the beginning of Darth Sidious's plan, and we get to see his manipulation of the Senate. George saved the exciting fight scenes with him for later, but in this we get to see his roots of his manipulation with the Republic and his actual rise to power. The other thing a lot of people complain about this movie about is the midichlorians, which that's kind of a touchy topic. But it never bothered me either. It doesn't go against what Obi-Wan said in episode 4. In fact, it really sets us up to see the failings of the Jedi at the end of the Republic era. The Chosen One is brought to them by Qui-Gon, or the Force, really. And they just refuse to even want to train him at first because he's too old. Like, what? That's so stupid. They're so caught up in their strict rules that they've lost who they really are. They're not actually listening to the Force anymore. Qui-Gon's really the true Jedi in this scenario. He's the only one who's actually listening to what the Force is telling him to do, which is to train the Chosen One. Whereas the Jedi just kind of sit around and complain that he's too old and read their rule books. One could also say that Yoda could be the true Jedi in this scenario. Perhaps he's the one who sees through this and doesn't want to follow the will of the Force, because he does say that the future is cloudy with this one. Maybe he thinks that they should take their own path, because maybe he sees that this young boy will maybe murder younglings or something. I don't know. I think if George would have mentioned them somewhere in the original trilogy, fans wouldn't have had such a backlash to the midichlorians. And it's a shame he got so much hate for it, because I think they were going to play a much larger role in this trilogy. And now we can see in interviews that he was laying the groundwork for his sequel trilogy even. But instead he decided to sell the company, and we will probably never get to see what he would have done with his last 3 films. Guys, another awesome aspect of this movie is the music. Come on, Star Wars has some of the most iconic music of all time. Of course, we get Duel of the Fates, which is simply amazing. But another one I think is kind of underrated is actually the music that plays when Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Jar Jar are going to the underwater Gungan city. I just love that choral piece there. I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10. And I know that's going to shock a lot of you, but I don't see as much wrong in it as a lot of people do. I think it's a very fun sci-fi movie. I grew up with it, so there's a little bit of a nostalgia factor for me in there as well, maybe. But even rewatching it, I still think it's a very fun movie to watch. There's great action scenes, and obviously there's some great lightsaber duels as well. Well, guys, I know this might be a controversial review, but please sound off in the comments about your thoughts. I'd love to just hear what everyone has to say. Disagree with me or agree with me, I'll have a discussion with you. I don't care. I love talking about movies, and especially Star Wars in particular. So please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you for my next review.